Hey everybody, I'm Randy from ElderGeek.com, and today with me I have three very special guests to help celebrate the Loudr Game Music Festival. Starting directly below me is Ryan Ike. Ryan, go ahead and say hello.
Hi.
Ryan, I know what you are most famous for, but why don't you share with everybody before we continue on with with the interview what most people would probably know you for.
I am most famous for / only famous for the soundtrack to Gunpoint, which I wrote most of.
Not only famous for, come on, don't sell yourself short. Below Ryan is Josh Whelchel. This is not the first time that Josh has been on an Elder Geek show. Josh, welcome back, bud.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing all right. And Josh is known for doing a bajillion things. VVVVV. I think I threw enough V's in there. No.
No. No, not me.
No, wasn't you?
No,
I totally thought
Soli.
that was you.
No, that's the incredible work of Magnus Soli.
I
I
totally
would have just
thought that
taken
was
the
us.
credit for that if I was you.
Yeah, I'll take the credit for it, but I really can't. It's way above my my ability, so I won't do that.
But you also did a track on Super Meat Boy. You did Ravenmark, Scourge of Stellion, or however that's pronounced. Scrolls. I don't know how much of Scrolls you've done yet, but you're working on Cave Story at the moment, right?
You are just a blunderbuss.
Not Cave Story, Castle Story.
Castle Story. Yeah. No, Castle Story and Scrolls are my two main projects right now, yeah. With Matthias. I don't know if you guys know Another Soundscape, but he is a Swedish composer. He's the, what is he? The director of fun at Propellerhead, the guys who make Reason. But yeah, I work with him.
Great. And then last but certainly not least on the bottom is Josh Kaplan. Josh, hello.
Hi.
Well, why don't you tell everybody what you are most known for?
I guess what I'm most known for is the game called Plague Incorporated, Plague Inc. I did the soundtrack for that. It's a touchscreen game, and a bunch of other games, indie games, small things.
He says it casually. It's a touchscreen game. Not like it's like the most renowned touchscreen game that there is. Like even I think like the CDC plays it, or they've studied it.
They do.
Yeah, it's the Angry Birds of touchscreen games.
So the way this is going to kind of work out, we're going to work this. I even told this to Josh K. I'm going to refer to you guys as Josh K and Josh W.
That works.
From here on
that
out.
works.
I love
But
that. Thanks.
Josh K was, he was saying like, how is this going to happen? I said it's basically going to be a panel like you would do at a con, but instead of like 200, nerds asking you questions, there's just going to be one. So you guys can kind of answer however you wish. Some might be directed to you, some not. But I guess kind of as a general question for everybody, like, how did you guys get your break into doing this? I mean, for a lot of people, music is their passion, but a lot of people don't have the luck of getting into doing game music. So what was your big break? Like how, what got you into it? Ryan, let's start with you. You're on top, and then we'll go down.
Great. And you're sure you don't want to call me Josh as well?
It might be, or I might just call you Randy since you have all the letters in Randy, but missing the D. Or I might go by Ryan, so we'll have two Randys and two Joshes, or two Ryans and two Joshes.
You are just cracking my brain in half right now.
Oh, snap.
So, like anything good that's ever happened to me in my life, including like my marriage, it was pretty much blind luck. I was doing what everybody who's trying to break into this industry is doing, or at least is doing once they get advice, which is kind of cold emailing a lot of devs who are working on stuff, trolling like TigSource, IndieDB, that sort of thing. And as anybody who's done that knows, that's really, really hit or miss. There's people who already have music. There's projects that don't go anywhere. You can find stuff that way, and I have since. But I was in the midst of doing that, not having much luck, and then I happened to see a tweet that somebody mentioned, like, hey, here's my submission for the Gunpoint audio contest. And I was like, what's a Gunpoint, and what's the audio contest for it? And so I checked it out, and it turned out Tom Francis, who's the developer, was holding a kind of an open audition, which is a little bit unusual for indie games. And he basically said, here's a trailer with no music, and everybody write something and send it in, and I will pick what I think is the best fit. And yeah, I saw the insane caliber of people who were sending stuff into this and thought, I have no shot, but I will do this as a kind of fun exercise, and ended up getting the job, which was pretty incredible.
That is incredible. As kind of a side question before, everybody gets into answering this, like in the creative field, there's a really bad habit amongst employers who say, oh, you know, and this is both in design and in like acting and film and everything like that, where they say, oh, you know, I need work done, but I don't have a budget to pay it. Will you work for free and then, you know, rag this off on your resume? Does that happen a lot in the music world too?
Constantly.
Does it?
Constantly.
That
and it's very toxic in my opinion. And a lot of people I've talked to, like, there are all these people trying to get into this field who are, and I thought this too. I'm not trying to be the hypocrite I normally am. I totally thought this is what you should do until I was set straight by people like Josh W., who's the guy I talked to about this at one point at a gang thing, who know better. You should never ever work for free.
No.
It devalues game music. It kind of perpetuates the idea that, oh, this doesn't really have to cost anything because they love doing this, right? And there's a lot of devs who know it's worth stuff, but there's a lot of devs who think that it's just a thing you do for fun, so why shouldn't you do it for free?
Right.
And yeah, and you really have to try to avoid it when you can.
That stinks. All right, moving on down. Josh W., what was your big breaking moment? Like, how did you get into doing this?
Well, I had a buddy that wrote music named David Selesco, who you guys may or may not know. I wrote him fan mail because I was like 12 and he had written music for some freeware game, and I was in the scene called the Click community, which is where Derek Yu comes from. And I wrote him fan mail, and I was like, how the heck? This is incredible. And I had just finished a game called The Spirit Engine 1, which didn't get it, you know, wasn't a big deal or whatever. But that dude made a sequel that was sold, and that was my first commercial thing, and that felt really good. And then I went to GDC, essentially, and the way I got the Scrolls gig was Matthias and I put together probably like 7 or 8 tracks that we would have written for Scrolls if we got the gig. We made a website of it, and we sent it to them, and then they landed on like this Scrolls music website thing, and they listened to everything, and they loved it. I used like a little music from Raven Mark, a little music from some other stuff. But yeah, it's just a lot of free gigs up until the point where like you can't take it anymore, and you realize it's worth something, and then you just try. And it works.
And that you have to eat too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Ryan said it best. Like, he had the perfect answer, so...
Cool. All right, Josh K., how about you? What was your bust into this?
Same kind of thing as the other guys. You just basically find your way into maybe student projects or other people who are just trying to make their first game. And, you know, I just had the idea. I'd always been a musician, but I just thought, why not go for games? So I started to look around forums and this and that. And like I said, working for free or like you're not supposed to do. But until you build up your portfolio a little bit, you know, it's hard to get a leg in. Once you have a couple of those games, the starter games out, you have like 5 or 6, then you can start trying to write people and say, oh, I've done this, I've done that. And like Plague, I was just lucky that he saw my website and he wrote me and asked if I would be interested in it. But if I hadn't done all that work to prep myself for it, I wouldn't have been able to jump at that opportunity.
You know, the first time I came across your work, you know, that I knew that you did the Plague soundtrack, I had a guy who approached me a little while ago and said, hey, I want to write mobile reviews. And I said, great, I don't touch mobile reviews, so please go ahead. And when he wrote about about Plague, he didn't mention the music at all. And I was like, come on, you can't do a review without mentioning the music because it's kind of an essential part of the game. It might not be like in your face all the time, but we need to at least make a nod whether it was terrible, whether it was average or you know, great. And he said that it was great, but I don't think he could find you right away. So I had to do some digging for him, and then I found you. So it was kind of a nice little coincidence that we ended up in this
fantastic
group chat. Yeah. Sorry, that was a little ramblish. Is anybody working on anything interesting now that they can share with? Like a lot of stuff is, you know, kind of hush hush and you can't really mention. But is anybody working on anything that you can mention?
Yeah, I'm currently working on a cool, I think it's cool, cyberpunk stealth game called Interference.
Okay.
And not to, you know, be shameless plug all over the place, but we actually have an Indiegogo campaign going right now. And so anybody who sees this, I would, you know, encourage them to check it out. Maybe kick us a couple bucks so we can actually like make it a real thing that happens. But it's very cool. The guy who is the sole dev on it is also an amazing artist, so it's got this very unique visual style. And one of the main mechanics is you can actually kind of what's called glitch, like the reality around you, so you can kind of move the different like sectors of the environment, like in a kind of a grid-like formation to reshape your environment so that you can traverse in different ways. So it's a really neat idea.
Okay. Josh, can you mention anything that you're working on? Josh W?
Yeah. First of all, game interference that Ryan is working on, it seriously looks incredible. I've been watching YouTube videos of it as much as possible. You guys should check it out. It sounds amazing. I'm mostly just working on Castle Story and Scrolls. We had finally the orchestral thing we did was put into Scrolls recently, so that was awesome. And then we've got a few battle tracks that we're doing or whatever. But for Castle Story, I actually developed a FM synthesizer for Reason. It's a rack extension that Matthias and I use, and I really, really one day want to get that out to the world. But I'm just like working on a few other small projects. Like a huge website. But that's been keeping me away from this like FM synthesizer, which I'm totally a geek for. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Eric Surkey, who did like, Spelunky, and obviously a lot of Lambier's old games, but he is in love with FM stuff too. And I was able to sit down with Disaster Piece recently and kind of go over how he does his FM8 stuff, which gave me a lot of insight into how people are using like modern FM sounds, and then being well acquainted with chiptune guys like Inverse Phase, and then Rich obviously also does that FM synthesizer, that we're calling FM Blaster. I hope to have it out like next year at some point, but I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen? But it's a lot of fun to play with Matthias and Reason just on our like secret projects together.
That's awesome. Out of the two projects that were mentioned, the Cyberpunk game and Castle Story and Scrolls, like how close? Like I know Castle Story you can get the alpha for on Steam.
Oh yeah, totally. So Castle Story's in Steam beta right now, which means you can just go to Steam. I think you can buy it even and get in and just play it. And then with Scrolls, obviously it's the same kind of thing that Minecraft was, where you can just go to their site, pay whatever to get the alpha version, and you'll be subscribed to updates in the future. But Scrolls is blowing up. There's it's like a whole trading card game online. Yeah. And I know that at first people were like, Bethesda, the lawsuit happened, but Scrolls is a pretty substantial game in and of itself.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. But yeah, it's totally its own special thing, and I think you guys should check it out if you get a chance, and try not to get addicted, because like that too.
Ryan, how close is your project to being completed? Or you said it was in Indiegogo right now. Is there a possibility that it's never ever going to be done, kind of thing?
It's more, from what I understand, and I apologize to Anthony, the dev, if I'm misquoting him. It will have a slightly longer dev cycle. I think sometime in early 2014 if it gets funded. If it doesn't get funded, it will be completed sooner because we will have less resources to work with.
Right.
And it also actually has a free alpha build. You can check it out right now and see what you think. So yeah, it's totally playable if people want to give it a look.
That's awesome. I'll put links for everything in the description below the video so people can check this stuff out. Josh K, are you working on anything that you can speak about?
Yeah, actually, just maybe this past week came out a game called Cubicity, which is sort of like a 2D puzzle platform game. It's for PCs, but the Xbox version is going to be coming out just right before December hits, and I think he's also working on a touchscreen version of that. Then a fun game called Speedy Pups, where you're a puppy and you're running. It's sort of like Sonic, another touchscreen game. I really like doing the touchscreen ones. I'm not going to do a good job describing that one. It sounds kind of cheesy, but it's actually really, really fun.
It is. I played a bit of it. It's the music is amazing.
And then another game, it's called Night of the Living Dead, with a K, Night of the Living Dead. Sort of, I guess, a mix between maybe Castle Crashers and Battleheart. Not really sure when that one's going to be wrapping up. Probably that's going to be the last of them. But those are the three I'm working on, and they're all pretty cool. I'm proud of them.
At what point in like the development process do devs like hunt for musicians to add stuff? Is it generally towards the end, or in some cases do they bring you in the beginning because they want it to be ready as they're going along? Like what's the general hop in point?
It's actually been earlier than it used to be. It used to be that it was the last thing people would think about, and they'd have this whole game ready, and they'd say, okay, we want to put it out in 2 weeks. Can you write some music for it? But recently, developers have been really on the ball about it. I feel like they're getting in touch with me, with other composers also, when they're thinking of the game, and they're treating it with more respect than they used to. They're trying to get their assets for the sound in about the same time that they're trying to do the graphics, and it's nice. It's been a nice change.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, you guys actually, you're all talking as though when you're early in the development process and making music for the game, you're all interactive with one another. Is that a pretty regular thing amongst the, game development community? Or I should say within the game music community? Do you guys bounce ideas off of one another while you're going along?
Yeah,
we hang out. We hang out.
Yeah, I mean, you know, your mileage is going to vary from person to person, but like I do that all the time. If the developer says it's okay, you can get in trouble. Like people don't want you putting any music out there, but most of them are cool with it. And one thing I really like about the game music community in general is that it's really supportive and friendly. Yeah, I have a wife who's a historian, and they are the exact opposite. Like they are cutthroat. Like they don't want to talk to you. It's all about, you know, getting your own thing out there. And game music is just such a supportive, you know, kind of interwoven community. So it's really fun to get other people's opinions on what you're doing.
Yeah, I am very aware of historians, and they're like, even historians in general are kind of, they're combative against other types. Like, oh, you're a military historian? Well, to hell with you, because I'm a medical historian, kind of thing. So it is a different group. Like honestly, like talking to musicians within the game community, that it is a much tighter group than most industries out there, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. We see the trend in like the development community of games, and I know at least the people that I talk to, they're very close, especially in the indie game community. I think there's even like a Skype room where like that, you know, literally all of them hang out.
Yeah.
And it's a mess for the modern Skype client, but but even outside of the tight knit community, speaking towards the musicians, like I know that I share my mixes with a small group of people that I can. Obviously, I'm doing it on SoundCloud, and like the dev teams can see it, so I have to keep it at a minimum. But yeah, I think it's really important, and it's one of the only communities, at least in terms of like the few that I delve into, like between the game music or the programming or the DSP design or whatever. Game musicians are the fastest to respond. They're the nicest, and they don't have sticks up their butts. So it's really cool to be with a bunch of them.
I mean, you guys work a lot in indie games, but is there a major difference between developing sound design and music for a smaller indie game than versus something large like a AAA funded type title? Like, is there? I guess that is the question. Is there a different thought process, or would they generally go for like a larger pre-established group of people for music and sound design then?
Does anybody want to jump on this one? I know that like with the projects that are bigger that I've worked on, especially if there is a producer, that's when things get weird. But like,
explain weird.
That's a weird thing to say. If there's a producer who has like really tight needs and they're like want complete control over everything, you have a little less creative control, and it's a little more frustrating. To be what we consider like these indie game musicians, where Ryan, you probably literally, when you're working on a game and somebody came to you, like for Gunpoint, you got to sit down and you wrote Ryan Ike music for Gunpoint. And that's really what it's all about. That's why it's so good. And Josh, when you do your smaller iPhone games, it's very much probably the same, right? You get to sit down and you write music that you're like, okay, well, I'm Josh and there's this game that I'm going to write music for, but this is my soundtrack to this game. And I know I've heard the story that like when you're looking at the bigger titles, the producers and the creatives, they have pretty much the whole experience, the atmosphere wrapped up that they want you to capture. And obviously that's your job in being a game composer. But when it has crossed a line for me in the past. I don't know if you guys have had any like experiences where a game developer or a game designer just kind of really wants something so specific that you think is such a poor choice because you know, like if you know that, for example, if you know you've got a game, Frogger, and it's got to be light or whatever, and the guy just wants like rock guitar with a little like death metal, but it doesn't fit the aesthetic or the message of the game. Like if it was Frogger for death metal kids, like that'd be cool. But if it's just Frogger and he wants that, like that's when you're like, what the heck?
That's amazing.
Actually, Kickstarter, let's do it.
Yeah, right.
Let's make this happen, guys.
No, but I mean, Josh, you've done a lot of iPhone games, and I know at least when I've done the mobile space, it's a little different too. Do you have any stories?
Yeah, no, you get. I guess I've been really fortunate that when people have decided to work with me, they've said, okay, you're the musician, you're the sound designer, you know what's best, and usually they're pretty, they have it's their game, so they have a vision for what they want it to sound like, and they're coming to you. And I've had, I wouldn't say fights, but you have to push back against some bad ideas sometimes.
Right.
But mostly everyone's been pretty cool, and that's what I like about doing the indie games, and that's probably why I haven't put so much effort into trying to get into these bigger corporate gigs, because it's fun. I still like to have fun, and that's why I got into doing it. So
that's awesome. It's good to hear that. It almost seems like a more reason to stay smaller instead of kind of going bigger, because I could imagine that it would get a little frustrating if you went into a project and they had a very specific sound in mind, and it wasn't really something that you did, or maybe you just didn't think that it melded well with the personality of the game or something along those lines. So,
well, also, I imagine that if you're working on one huge game,
yeah,
that's all you can be working on. And so me personally, I like to be able to juggle 3 or 4 different things and write in this style and write in that style and kind of get your fingers into a bunch of different pies. So, I like to spread myself thin like that. What are you laughing at?
I like to over budget. I like to overschedule myself. Hey, you guys have any crazy fans? Anybody like drive a van into your front wall like Eddie Vedder?
I wish. I had a guy come up to me at PAX and like recognize me visually, which does not happen except from like cork boards in various restaurants and businesses, like, do not serve to this person. And
do not accept checks from this gentleman.
Right. Yeah. Like that, in that community, I'm widely known. But somebody at PAX came up to me and was like, "Oh my God, are you Ryan Ike?" I'm like, "Yes." And like, I'm terrified that he wants to take my organs home with him or something. And he actually whipped out his phone. He was like, "I love the Gunpoint soundtrack. Like, I've listened to a bunch of your other stuff. Like, it's I was so incredibly baffled that this human being knew who I was, and also like incredibly grateful to have somebody who I'm still at the stage where if anybody likes anything I've done, I can't tell you why. Like it's great when you have fans like that. So having somebody like run up to me and recognize me in public, but no Eddie Vedders yet. Like, fingers crossed.
It's only a matter of time, dude. You're gonna be swarmed.
I can't wait for fans to just rush my apartment from all angles. It's gonna be amazing, especially because I live on the 2nd floor, so they're gonna have to ramp it up.
Oh, they're just gonna pile their corpses up and climb on each other into your window,
zombie style. Great.
That's the only way.
Other Joshes, or I shouldn't say other Joshes. The Joshes. Any crazy fan stories? Crazy fan stories are awesome. I was hoping for somebody to like.
Sorry.
No.
No, I'm not as cool as Ryan Ike over here.
That's not the word I would use at all, but
that's awesome.
Oh, that's awesome.
What about influences, guys? Like, what kind of music do you listen to when you're not composing? Like, what drives you to create the style of music that you create? Let's start at the bottom this time. Josh K, you're up, bud.
What kind of music do I? All kinds of music. What a great answer. No, I like electronic music. I like to hear what the kids are doing nowadays. Yeah, I guess what I have on repeat right now is Subtract. I'm really into him. And then, maybe it's sacrilegious for someone who writes music for video games to say, but I'm not really one of those guys who can rattle off all the game composers and is influenced by this guy or that guy. And I just like regular music,
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like, I don't think there's any harm in saying who you listen to. I think if you came forward and said that Lady Gaga was a huge inspiration for you, I don't think there should be any shame in that at all. I mean, you like what you like.
Well, I'll give a shout out to one guy who I'm really into, and I've been into him for the past couple years. Is this guy named Freddie Todd, who I guess he's dubsteppy. I don't know if that's cool or not, but he's really out there. So
yeah,
I'll throw his name out just to give a shout out.
All right, Josh W. Who do you listen to recharge your mental batteries?
So I've been really into Stromae. Stromae is a French rapper from Bruges or Belgium or something, but he's incredible. You guys should listen to the song Carmen on Spotify or something if you get a chance, because it's incredible. But that kind of like electronic new age stuff, I really like when things get a little trippy with some shuffle. So I'm a big fan of like Mux Mool. That's MUXMOOL. I'm just looking at my Spotify playlist. I'm in love with Lord like everybody else. Mrs. Mr. MSMR is awesome too. But yeah, I'm listening to like a lot of pop. I'm doing a lot of coding lately, so it's a lot of pop stuff too, just to kind of like chug through. But yeah, a little bit of everything. For orchestral stuff, I'm a Yoko Kanno fan. Not Yoko Ono, that would be really bad. But I just like a mix. So.
All right, Ryan, what about you?
I tend to be a huge fan of any musician who like their body of work is like a huge bonanza of like every possible ridiculous different thing. So like I love probably one of my favorite bands is Mars Volta. I listen to those guys a lot. Like, you know, their body work has blues and jazz and Latin and just they try a bunch of stuff, and honestly, sometimes it doesn't work. And I like that. I like a band that's willing to try crazy things and see what sticks and put out there what maybe doesn't stick. Like, that's great. Video game composers wise, because I actually listen to a ton of game music just because one of the downsides to this job is you're writing music all the time. You can't listen to music, except for what you're doing. Like, it's a bummer. So Yumi Yake is probably my favorite. Like, he did most of the Katamari Damacy soundtrack. And that soundtrack is, if you've heard it, I mean, it's bananas. It's got J-pop, it's got, like, lounge jazz, it's got, like, scat, I think, at one point. Like, it's just insane. I love people who can do that kind of chameleon thing and just try thing after thing after thing. And he's one of my favorites because everything he seems to try, like, works. So it's bananas.
What's the one thing that, before you became a gay musician, what's the one misconception you probably had about it? Like you thought to yourself... Like people who are growing up and they're thinking to themselves, one day I'm going to be a game designer, and that means I'm going to be playing video games all day long, and it's going to be awesome. And in reality, that's not the case. So, like, what's a misconception you had about being a composer before you actually became a composer, if there is any?
I personally thought that there was like at least in the indie space, like a process for this. Like,
yeah.
So please enjoy my resume. Like, no, yeah, like it's the frontier out here still. Like, there's no, you have to meet people at bars and parties and stuff, and cold call, and it's this crazy thing. Like, there's no. I also thought you could just walk in and get a AAA music job. Like, I thought there were AAA music jobs.
Yeah, you just open up the newspaper and they're listed.
Right, yeah, exactly.
The yard work jobs.
Good for college kids. Like, cool. But most AAA studios don't even hire in-house musicians. And that was probably one of my biggest shockers when I was first getting into this, is I thought they had on-staff composers like they did kind of in the 90s. But no, they mostly contract out.
Yeah.
So nobody's going to like get a job being the composer at BioWare or what have you.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, when I started, I actually thought I had this really great, unique idea that I would start writing music for video games, like these little Flash games, that no one was doing it. And only after I started to do these projects did I realize there's a whole indie game scene. There's all these indie game composers.
There was already an established community.
Yeah. So, I was just like, I had 2 little kids, and they were always on the computer playing these crappy little Flash games with like the 15-second loops, and they were driving me crazy. And I was like, someone has to do something about this. So I thought I would...
This needs to be stopped.
Yeah, so I thought I would go, write some of these guys and see if I could get my music on there. And then, lo and behold, I wasn't the first one that thought of that.
That's so awesome, though, that you were organically inspired to do it after, especially from watching your children. It's that's pretty cool. I can't fathom that level of adulthood.
Neither can I.
Yeah, maybe that leads me to my answer, that you have to really grow up, and you're running a business when you're writing music for video games. There's a lot of things involved. You really, besides all the fun parts of playing the games and dealing with everything, you have to make a living, and making a living is tough, especially if you're writing music. So you have to have the right friends, and you meet the right people, like Ryan said, at bars, whatever, or you do all the cold calls and you get lucky. That's kind of a shocker when you're a little kid and you're like, dang, Doom, this sounds awesome. I want to do this. Very different.
When you guys were growing up, what games did you guys play that made you think to yourself, I want to do this, or what? I mean, everybody has to have some kind of inspirational game growing up,
Tecmo
Bowl,
man. I was all over Tecmo Bowl all the time. The music to that game is amazing.
Josh, Ryan, either of you guys?
I was a big N64 kid. In my tweens. I hate that word, but in that age range, and
do the kids even still say tweens anymore?
Yes, they do.
They do?
God,
okay, all right.
Yeah. That's disgusting. So yeah, I was really big on everything made by Rare in the 90s was my jam. So I like Banjo-Kazooie, Grant Kirkhope. Pretty much everything Grant Kirkhope wrote the music for was what I looked up to. He's amazing, and he knows his theory too. I heard this cool thing about the Banjo-Kazooie soundtrack is all based around the tritone, which if you're not musically inclined is this really gross sounding pairing of notes that back in medieval times was illegal. They'd throw you in jail, you're the devil if you write it. And he based the whole soundtrack around it, and it sounds amazing, and it's to reflect, you know, the title characters and how they're so different, and you'd think they wouldn't go together, but they do. And so when I found out that it wasn't just amazing sounding, but he actually had theory behind it, like, I flipped out as a, you know, 13, 14-year-old, whatever I was. Like, that was my jam.
Heck yeah, Grant is a genius.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty spot on, Ryan. I was really into Jazz Jackrabbit personally. Like, that was probably the first game where I was like, "Oh, this is energetic. This is awesome." That was obviously Alexander Brandon. And I played Doom. I wasn't very good music, but I didn't know any better. Killing
Come on, we
shit,
all
so
thought
it's
that was
fine.
good music back in the 90s.
No, but the first one I remember, like, what really I think took me to the piano literally was the Seventh Guest, because there was like a puzzle in the game where you had to play the main melody, and it was so catchy, obviously, that they could make a whole puzzle around you having to play it on piano, even if you didn't freaking play the piano. So that was it. It was just really great. I remember, like, I would play Legos and have that stuff on repeat. It's cool.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. What instruments did you guys all start on?
Piano and cello. Done.
Piano and cello?
Yeah.
Do you still play cello?
No. I wish I did, but I don't. It's been forever.
Yeah, I was a bass player.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you play anything else now, or is it just strictly bass and then you...
Yeah, I mean, I play everything. No, I mean, you know, once you know music, you can dabble around on pretty much anything. But
yeah.
But I was a bass player. I'll always be a bass player.
Gotcha.
You need to specify, though, that you play upright bass, which is the coolest friggin' instrument.
Mainly electric, but I can play the upright, yes.
That's really awesome, dude. I played the electric
jealous.
bass in jazz band in high school or in middle school, but that was a little slap.
Yeah.
It's so bad. It's so bad, so I just left it off my list.
That goes right in with that, you know, the slap bass goes right in with that the Doom music in the 90s, baby, you know.
Oh, yeah.
It fits right in there.
I'm gonna bring it back.
Do it. Ryan, what about you? What did you start on?
I am incredibly cliched. I was a piano kid. Technically, I started on this really battered, like, piece of crap organ that my parents had in the basement, and I would go down and learn the theme song to, like, Tailspin or whatever dumb thing I was watching as a kid.
Heck yeah.
And then transitioned to piano, and then I picked up drums in middle school, so I'm also a drummer, and all of the baggage that mentally comes with being a drummer, I guess. But yeah, piano's my main instrument.
All right, very cool. Are there any soundtracks out right now that you guys listen to that you're like I'll say, for instance, like listening to the Fez soundtrack and the soundtrack to BioShock Infinite, like finding out that there were like hidden stuff in, you know, beneath the layers of those soundtracks just kind of blew my mind. You know, the fact that there was imagery within the Fez soundtrack kind of you know, made my head explode. And the fact that like the BioShock Infinite soundtrack had like Cyndi Lauper in it and crap like that if you played it slow enough. Is there anything? Are there any soundtracks out there right now that you're really kind of impressed by?
The Skyrim soundtrack is freaking amazing.
Yeah, I was just listening to that today. It's good background music. Gosh, that's a tough question. I just watched the movie. This movie's really old, so it's a shitty answer. But the movie The Fountain was amazing. It had beautiful music by the Kronos Quartet and Clint Mansell, who did, I guess, the Mass Effect 3 theme song. Is that right, you guys? Check me quick.
Sorry, man.
If I use my keyboard, it's going to sound like I'm like a 1920s keyboard. It's like clackety clack.
Yes, well, obviously I'm not acquainted with the thing I'm talking about, that being the Mass Effect 3 soundtrack, but I was right. I double-checked. Yeah, but no, The Fountain was awesome. It was like the last, and I did like Cloud Atlas a lot, as cheesy as that is, and that's more towards like the film cinematic stuff.
Yeah.
Cinematic is the real word. And then I loved Portal. Portal 2 had an incredible soundtrack, and the way it was implemented, I thought was pretty special for the scale of that game.
Cool. Ryan, you?
I'm a pretty big horror game fan, and so I'm actually listening currently to the soundtrack to Dead Space by Jason Graves.
Really?
Yep. I know that's weird because it's incredibly dissonant, and if you
How
roll around
soothing.
town with your if you roll around town with your windows down, like people look at you like you are a serial murderer. Like it's not a thing people do. But
yeah,
I'm doing
and
it
they're like,
'cause,
"Hey, buddy, Halloween was like 4 weeks ago."
yeah, what are you doing? No, it's great. I actually picked it up through Loudr because one of their amazing bundles They did a Halloween one, and it's just really cool. He's another guy. He knows his theory. He did this amazing thing where he sampled little bits of the whole orchestra doing all these terrifying sounds, and then just made his own massive like monster instrument out of them, and then went to his studio and he's like, here, now I can just play these sounds whenever I want. And he crafted this amazing, music it's haunting, and I would say it's pretty, but it's not pretty. It's disgusting and awful, and I love it.
But it's supposed to be disgusting, and so
right? No,
like,
that's the
works.
thing. He's so good at it.
That's kind of awesome. All right, final question, and then we'll wrap things up. What's if you guys had a dream project that you wanted to work on? I know you're all crazy overbooked as it is, but if you could put everything down and work on one dream project, what would it be?
I would probably.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Go ahead.
No, you absolutely go first.
My Minnesota politeness. Sorry about that. So I guess like
it's almost
for
Canadian
me,
politeness.
it's one or two notches below. We'll still talk crap about you behind your back. Is the difference?
There.
So for me, I guess there are so many, but if I had to pick a main one, it'd be something like I would love to do something like any of the Bit Trip runner games, something where music isn't just a facet, but it's actually a huge kind of part of the gameplay. It's really tied in. Anything like Bit Trip Runner, or like you mentioned before, Randy, BioShock Infinite.
Yeah.
I actually love the way that music ties in with the story.
Yeah.
And if you're paying attention, when I was playing that, there were a couple times where I heard songs that I went, oh my god. I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't played it yet, but there were things I heard in the music that actually gave me story details before I would have learned them in the actual script.
Right.
And I thought it was amazing. So anything that uses music as an integral part beyond just the soundtrack, I would love to do that.
Yeah, you would hear like 1920s and 30s renditions of like 80s songs. It was really
and you would
cool.
know this shouldn't be here, and it really made me start thinking differently about what I was seeing. It was so cool.
Yeah, that's cool. I think we just blew Josh Whelchel's mind. He just did a little loud.
My mind's blown. Shoot. Well, if you'd asked me like many years ago, I would say I would love to go back and write like a Japanese RPG score, because that would be epic, and the music was so entrenched in the player's experience or whatever. But
yeah, but good Japanese RPGs don't exist anymore.
Well, that's a big problem.
Yeah.
That's very true. But I mean, also the style's a bit cliched, and it's weird. For the first time, I was sitting down at the piano, like in our office, just kind of jamming on some stuff, and our friend Sebastian, who works there, has all the Final Fantasy sheet music. So I whipped some of it out, and I'm playing it. I'm like, oh, I remember playing the Aerith theme. That's like, it was so awesome. Now I'm just like, this is kind of repetitive. I've lost my my lust for the Japanese RPG, and I'm trying to find that hole again. So I don't know. I'm just gonna keep doing it until I can make a new sound, and I think that's what I want to do.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Other Josh,
Yeah.
Josh K.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a particular type of game, but I haven't actually, because I do a lot of these small touchscreen kind of games, I'd love to do something adaptive where, this happens in the game and then the music follows it, or it goes that way and the music follows it that way, instead of writing what I usually do, which is just, kind of flat tracks. It's this world, it's that world, so the music has to be this or that. I'd love to do something that had more evolution in the music. So you could write a stem here and then write, kind of like a choose your own adventure from the audio end.
Yeah.
That'd be a lot of work, but that'd be a lot of fun to do.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
That'd be so cool.
Hopefully
You should
they
make
would
that
pay
game
you
anyway.
well for that too.
Yeah, hopefully.
All right, well let's wrap this up. Honestly, thanks guys for hopping in. I really do appreciate it. Check out their collective bodies of work, so you'll find them all in the links below. If they have appropriate YouTube channels, you'll probably be able to click on their heads and go to their YouTube channels as well. But also check out Loudr, where you can find a good majority of their music as well, and pick it up for yourselves. Good night, fellas. You guys want to go say good night? We'll start at the top and go down. Ryan, then Josh W, and Josh K.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm the Ryan.
You're the Ryan.
I forgot I wasn't one of the Joshes. My bad. Yeah. So.
And
night,
while you're
everybody.
doing it, please plug whatever you need to plug. Plug away. This is the plugging hour.
Okay, the plugging hour. Great. So yeah, once again, I would really encourage people check out Interference. We're on Indiegogo right now, and we could use a little help getting funded. I'm working on a couple other games that I can't talk about yet, but I will. And then, yeah, I just would encourage you to click on my stupid, dumb, oversized head and check out some of my stuff.
A very beautiful.
And thanks for
oversized
listening.
Josh W, go ahead. Plug away.
I would totally plug everybody else because we're at Loudr. We're doing this game music festival, and everyone has been so awesome in meeting, and obviously we're pulling things. We're trying to do a lot, and everyone's been super helpful. So just like go listen to Ryan, go listen to Josh, go listen to everybody else. And we've got like a bajillion commentaries and videos going up over the week, so don't miss any of that stuff.
Awesome. Josh K.
All right, go check out Plague Inc. Check out Cubicity. Check out Speedy Pups and Night of the Living Dead, which should be out soon. Penum Bear is a really good one, which I did the sound effects for. Didn't write the music for that, but I think people should check that one out. The Undead Empire on the Xbox. There's a bunch I'm forgetting, but yeah, click on my face, I guess, and check out where it goes.
Where does your face go?
Yeah.
All right, everybody, have a good night.